Okay, so I'll try to make this also somewhat personal with the dark glasses. Why do you have dark glasses?
Okay, so I have an eye infection.
Oh, I'm sorry.
People have eye infection, so then if I cry, I say, "Why is the eye infection?"
I see, I see. Well, at least I can see you. So I'll make this also as personal, somewhat personal, so can kind of talk a little bit about Zena, because we worked together very closely for 5-6 years, very, very closely, and then on and off after that. So before meeting Zena, I was at Chalmers, and I was doing this work on with John Hughes on productivity of lazy streams, and so I was at Chalmers embedded in Haskell. I mean, everybody around me is doing Haskell, Haskell, Haskell. And the only semantics I could see for, Haskell was all, graph updates. So you have a graph and you have a store and then you share and then you update. And then it's extremely hard to reason about it. There were attempts on trying to kind of make it easier to think about, but fundamentally, you had a global store and assignments. I was very frustrated because it was very hard to debug, to prove things about it, to do anything about it. So then whoops, what is my thing? There's a missing slide. What happened? Hey, now we're even now. What's happening here? I think that email ate some of the slides. Well, so that was a slide. So I went to Oregon to interview for a position, and I met Zena, and we talked and talked and talked. And the time she was in the process of finishing this paper. The paper was, so the story that Marco said was kind of right. He was nice, he didn't say all the details. But she had worked on the coordinate lambda calculus with Matthias, and she was finishing the details, explaining it to me. And when she explained it to me, I was like, this is so simple. Why didn't I think of this? I've been spending like 2 years working on Haskell, Chalmers, and it was so obvious, especially since when I kind of remembered. So this is work I had done during my PhD thesis years ago on doing calculus for state, for store. And we knew from Matthias and from this work that you can represent the store in a syntactic theory very nicely. And I was like, this is so close, but there was something about the way she did lambda calculus, the copy lambda calculus, that was really, really elegant and simple. And the idea that nobody had ever thought about was to have binding in the evaluation context. Evaluation context never had, they never captured variables. And by using this very, very simple idea, everything fell through very, very nicely. And I was telling myself, this is very nice and elegant. Maybe I was close to this. And then I looked at her proof, and these are the pictures that Marco showed, but this proof is so beautiful. I was like, Zena, this was amazing. I mean, I would have, to formalize the call by need being observation with call by name would be extremely, extremely difficult for anybody else. She did it in this amazing technique. There was like a watermark, and the water goes up when you share and goes down when you don't share. And it was like so beautiful. So it was really, really a very amazing kind of work, very, very elegant work. Solving something that was so prevalent and everybody was using stores and kind of brute force kind of modeling. And this was a very, very simple, very elegant way to explain call by need semantics. Then, do you remember that monster paper? 120 pages. Her and Stefan were, so I was still in Oregon, and she had started, not started, she was continuing this work on the cyclic lambda calculi. And initially I was trying to follow and kind of, sit along with her and Stefan and learn a bit. But then it was like, it was just, I lost, my tolerance for pain was not that much. she was working on an infinite lambda calculus with infinite normal forms, and she had a sound and complete theory for it. And that's the 100. Yeah, exactly. The paper had cycles and all kinds of things. I mean, just so you can see the paper, I think I followed, maybe along trying to understand for a while. But then the paper was just, like everything you can imagine, a sound and complete axiomatization of terms, infinite normal forms, observable coherence, sharing and non-sharing, called by value, called by name, computational calculus, monads, categorical models. It was like everything in there. It was like amazing. And then it was like, what's the big kind of thing here is these ideas of infinite normal forms, or like the lambda calculus, called by need calculus with stores and graph. These are things that don't want syntactic methods. I mean, they are kind of not syntactic, at all. But she could kind of make the syntax match, work, and provide very, very elegant, very nice characterizations of these things. So I tried to learn a little bit with the gorilla over there, the GRC gorilla, and apply some techniques I learned. And this is a paper that we wrote together, probably our first paper together, I think. And try to take the ideas of sharing and lambda calculus and infinitary things and call by need and study the intermediate language of GRC in a different sense, because at the time, it was the state monads. There was a lot of work on the state monad and the soundness of encapsulation of state and so on. And it wasn't clear, I mean, the compiler was right in some sense, but it wasn't clear why. The monad essentially starts at the call by name treatment. You duplicate, you copy, you do all kinds of things. And then at some point, you open the monad and it becomes imperative. And you cannot share and you cannot duplicate anymore and so on. And we formalized all of this. And the main theorem was using the same ideas that she had used before. It was a call by need lambda calculus, where we expand things to infinite normal forms and do all of the same work that she had done before. So that was a very satisfying thing. And it was very, due to 2 years of learning some of those techniques with Zena. Okay. But as I said, I don't have the patience. I don't know how she did that big paper, the cyclic lambda calcula paper. I saw her with this 100-page paper. And I couldn't do those proofs. I mean, they were very, very tedious. So it's like, okay, I'm going to try to automate some of those proofs. And I think this takes us to, in some sense, a lot of the work that happened after that is how to turn all of these syntactic techniques. One of the beauty of syntax is you can very easily automate it. The tools work on syntax. So this was one small attempt that we had. It was very, very specialized. This was before, Agda and, Calc and all of these tools became popular. So we had our own kind of little domain-specific proof for this kind of particular theorem. And you can kind of write the specification and prove it. And that, for us, opened a whole kind of area of trying to automate those things, trying to use them to study operation semantics and compilers and interpreters and so on and so forth. Then this is not Zena, but this is important. And Hugo is here, I think. And I probably is Curly also here? Or maybe it's on. Salut, ça va? Yeah, so this is a very, very important paper. I mean, in general, but also for me and Zena. Because it's, in some sense, it made all of this call by name, call by need, call by value, and the sequent calculus that Simon was talking about, and natural deduction, all of these things became connected in a very, very beautiful and elegant way. And we build on this. And I think this is, so Simon, you might recognize this picture, or not. But in some sense, this is the same term in the natural deduction versus sequent calculus form. And the proof is kind of, inside out in some sense. And that is beautiful for programming, for evaluation. That's the term you're interested in, the subterm you wanted to work on is at the top. And Zena had this insight, I don't know how she got this insight, but she was like, well, if you have a machine, an abstract machine, then the term should stay at the bounded depth and should stay at the top. Whatever you're working on should stay at the top all the time, because you've inverted things and the term of interest top. You never have to go down and up the syntax tree. And we formalized this and for this paper, and I think that's probably, then she graduated to GRC after that. Anyway, and then I think, so Hugo was going to talk about these, so I was not going to talk about them, but these are two of my favorite papers. I think we spent maybe 2 years working on these papers with Hugo and Sena, and they are really probably my favorite papers from working with her. Okay, so I think, oh yeah, and then she punished me. I don't know if you remember this. My contribution to PLSS was probably that she done a lot of the work and she passed by my office and said, what do you think? I said, that sounds a good idea. And she put my name and then said, you're leaving, you deserve. No, I mean, so that was also a very gracious thing for her to have the vision. I mean, I think there was not many summer schools at the time, or maybe one, or maybe none, I don't know. And I think she had the vision that this is something that is needed for the community. And she just put the best kind of program, got the best people, and it's all her, in many ways. But then I left and kind of moved on to other things. Okay, so thank you, Sena. I learned a lot from you, learned a lot, and it was a pleasure. And we should get in touch again one day.